Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. This is gonna be a doozy. Oh
Yeah.
Already
man.
forgot.
Yeah, that's literally my brain right now. Like it's been absorbing information for hours now, and it's rough. It's rough.
All
I'm
right, quick.
not as young as I
Let,
used
let's
to be.
let's do the intro and jump right into it.
Okay, we're the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. I'm Jay. I'm joined with two co-hosts this week because Dan's on vacation. Joined with Christopher and Christian. Say hi, guys.
Hello there.
Damn it. 1 week. All right,
Yep.
tell them where you can find us, Christian. Hurry up. Faster, faster, faster,
All
faster,
right.
faster.
You can find the Grumpy Dungeon Masters on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, and you can find us streaming Tuesdays and Thursdays, various video games on Switch, and on Saturday nights, you can find Grumpy Dungeon Master Christopher streaming his D&D 5e game, Waterdeep World Born Dead.
Which is temporarily on hiatus because of holidays and stuff.
Yeah,
But soon.
after the holidays,
Yeah.
come back for the new year, whole new game.
Yep. All right, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's too late. It's all been forgotten.
Oh crap. I need to do a wordle real quick. Hold on. No. So
So
I can talk about it. I can talk about Avengers League, but we're gonna skip that.
we can come back to that if there's time.
Yeah. So here's
La-
the skinny. I was traveling to the LARP. I had LARP this weekend. It was great. It was fine. End of the year. Everything's done. Along the way, I needed something to listen to. And I found a YouTuber called Dungeon Dad. And he's a great YouTuber. And he basically does a monster of the week ecology, kind of like what we were doing, on and off. But he does a lot of really good work with it. Again, it's Dungeon Dad. So youtube.com/@Dungeon Go watch his shit. He's got some amazing videos. I highly recommend Dog Boys, The Silt Horror, The Hell Chain Weaver. They're all great. They're all fantastic. But the Pale Knight is the one that we have to talk about because that's the first one I listened to, and it kind of blew my mind a little bit. And
So
I guess,
So
where
I
do you want to
listened
start
it.
with this?
hang on.
Go ahead.
Go
Jay.
ahead. All right. So last night you posited the question to us: have we ever heard of the Pale Knight?
Correct.
And vaguely, I knew I had heard the name, but it didn't ring a bell. To Christian, it absolutely rung a bell because he was able to talk about it. And because of all of that, I went on this ridiculous deep dive. You also asked a question that I think we will end this segment with. But the question you had asked was, is the Lady of Pain an Obyrith?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll come back to that, hopefully, if we remember. So what is an Obyrith? Christian?
Well, what edition are we talking about?
Yes.
Because it has changed over the editions. When they first started out, they were like the oldest of demons, the first kind of infection of the abyss. And that evolved, and that was in that involved. And there were hints to they weren't named Obyrith in like second edition and stuff,
All
but
right.
three.
Yeah. So sorry. This is where my research will be coming in handy. The first mention of them as Obyrith that I could find was from 2006, which is third edition. That is in the Phoenix Codex 1, Hordes of the Abyss, which was written by Ed Stark. Sorry, can't read
Yeah.
my own handwriting.
Okay.
So all through the 90s, through mid 2000s, they were just demons. Tanari.
They were definitely well.
That's
some of
how
them were
they were.
considered Tanar'ri, but
That's
they
how
were really
they were
considered
referenced.
well because that was during the Satanic Panic where they
Yeah.
got rid of demons. They're like, oh, they're all Tanari. But even there in those editions, they made mention for certain named ones that these were not really Tanari, that they were already there when the Tanari
Oh yeah.
started populating the abyss. That these guys, when they came up, they just found these certain demon lords already there.
Yeah, that's definitely covered in many of the books that we'll
And
talk about.
yeah, and so they take some of that, and that's where they kind of grabbed some of those those really old ones. And they're like, okay, we'll kind of lump them all together. And some of them did have some intertwining history, previously, and that's who they decided to make the Obyriths. And there's
Yeah.
some lore about how, depending on your edition and which group of lore you subscribe to, there's some of it about how they they were the corruption of Tharizdun, the original creators of the Abyss, and that's how they were already there when all the other Tanarian demons started to spawn, because they were the ones responsible for its creation, for the Abyss as a wound in the Planescape. I think it was in maybe late 3.5 or 4th edition. There's some lore where it says they're actually from a previous Planescape that they destroyed, not necessarily on purpose. Kind of like they did their jobs really well and then realized they went, uh-oh.
There may have been mention of that as a possibility even in 2nd edition. I went through so many different books, I can't recall specifics, but there was mention in something that I read that they might have been from a previous dimension or world.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
some of these, some of this comes from a look to have where they wanted to have some Lovecraftian type creatures
Yep.
in the D&D space, and that's what these Obyriths, or these older than the rest of the demons are these kind of
They're
Lovecraftian.
elder gods, yeah.
Yeah, they're your elder gods. They're the horrors that your mind can't comprehend. The Pale Knight, her shroud is not something she chose to wear. It's something the cosmos itself is covering her up because her form is too horrible to behold.
Yeah. So sort of the first mention of them at all that I could locate would have been from 1991 Monsters Compendium Outer Planes Index. And it doesn't call them Yugoloths. It doesn't even mention the Tanari, but it's talking about the Yugoloths. And this comes up again in 1995 in the Planes of Conflict box set, I think it was, or it might have been a book, whichever, talking specifically about the Tanari and how they have dealings with sort of outsider elder beings, which while it's not stating them, it's still sort of referencing them.
Yeah. So there's some lore in Planescape that hints that the original fiends are the kind of the precursors to the Yugoloths, called the Bernoloths, and they are the original evil.
Yeah.
And that they spawned all the other kind of evils that are present out there, or as far as fiendish evils that are out there.
So the audience maybe is kind of picking up where we kind of mid conversation here. So
We kind of did.
Yeah, I kind of did. So to sum up what you guys are talking about right now, there is the Obyrith. Okay, the Obyrith are an eldritch race of demons that are so ancient that they predate all mortal life and even the existence of gods. And
that depends on that. That's not necessarily true. That part.
There's a lot of lore that's out there, and they do
Right.
specifically say there's a lot of misconceptions and misdirection.
Yeah.
So maybe.
But of them, there is one entity known as the Pale Knight. Okay. The Pale Knight is supposedly the mother of all demons. All right.
Once again, a lot of misdirection and lore.
A lot of misdirection.
That's more a title than necessarily a literal thing.
And in part of her cosmology, the Pale Knight's cosmology, she is possibly the oldest currently living creature within the Abyss, and possible within the oldest living entity of the multiverse in and of itself.
That is probably incorrect.
Yeah.
Right. But
Um,
that's kind of where it kind of lands.
Yeah.
So regardless, this is an entity that exists and has existed beyond recognition. Who came first is a kind of almost a chicken and the egg question. It depends on who the writer was. But you went by publishing dates, and you said the earliest publishing date was what again?
So there's a lot of things. Okay, so
So-
the first stats or mention, like official mention I could find of what the Obyriths are is from 1996. That is
Mhm.
that is where it's in the Rod of Seven Parts by Skip Williams,
Mhm.
and it actually has the stats for the Queen of Chaos, and it has the stats for Miska the Spider Wolf, who are both Obyriths. The Queen of Chaos, from everything I've dug through, seems to be the oldest of all of them. But once again, who really knows?
She
Right.
is the leader of them.
Yeah.
She was definitely created as far as like in the D and
Right.
D, like when they made it before Pale Knight. Pale Knight didn't start
She
out as one of
Pale
the
Knight's from 97.
yes, in
One
Faces of
so
Evil Fiends from Planescape.
yeah, 1
And
year
she didn't
later.
start out as like her lore there is very briefly mentioned. She
Yep.
is she has a minor mention, and she is old, but not like set to be like the most ancient thing ever. She's just a reclusive and very mysterious and very ancient demon lord.
Right. So, the video that I watched with Dungeon Dad kind of took from the perspective of how she was kind of written in third edition. I think the main book he got was the book called Expedition to the Demon Web Pits. And the description of her is essentially this. Pale Knight very well might be the oldest creature currently living within the Abyss, and possibly even within the multiverse itself. There is much conflicting information about this enigmatic design, though one thing is certain: she is feared by all, even other demons. Pale Knight is an Obyrith, a species of demon that is all but extinct. During their time in power, and aged long before the first mortal drew breath, the Obyriths were the uncontested masters of the Abyss. As their ambition grew, eventually they were hunted down relentlessly by the Eladrin and other Celestials intent on purging their dark influence from the multiverse. Despite this, Pale Knight survived. She chose to bide her time lurking in unseen places, methodically plotting her next move. Many believe it was Pale Knight that gave rise to the first amongst the current population of demons living within the Abyss. She is said to be the mother of Graz, GRAZ''ZT, and among several other demon lords. Pale Knight's true form is something so horrific, so unbelievably wrong, that reality itself rejects her appearance. The veil that covers her body is a magical and cosmic effect put in place by the laws of the multiverse in order to prevent her from spilling out and corrupting everything around her. She is able to temporarily suppress this veil, however. It takes a tremendous amount of willpower, meaning it's only possible to do so for mere moments. Some scholars believe that the veil itself is some kind of divine being that came to be as a response to Pale Knight's presence. However, this is a subject of much debate. Most creatures who lay eyes on her true form die instantly, and those who survive find it impossible to describe what they've seen. In many cases, their memory simply lapses due to the fact that their brain is incapable of rationalizing whatever it is that lies beyond the veil, and those who do retain even minor inconsequential bits of information are typically rendered completely mad. And so that's his kind of like intro right up to the Pale Knight. And we've done some more. We'll get back to more research. I wanted to go into the book that he got a lot of the stuff from. And Expedition to the Demon Web Pits on page 126. There's like this giant council of demon lords happening at this point in time. And you're supposed to kind of go to the different demon lords and curry favor with them under the orders of Grisat. And one of the things that Grisat says is, do not talk to the Pale Lady under any circumstances. Do not speak a word, not one word. And if you do, I'll read some of the descriptive text from the book. It says, the demon or woman speaking with one of the succubis is dressed head to toe in a white robe. Even her eyes are covered. Her voice is low and hard to hear. She gestures fluidly despite the robe. She seems not to notice you. If you do go up there and talk to her, it says, the white lady turns when you speak to her, her robe shimmering and hinting at the beautiful shape within. She lifts her hands to open the veil slightly, and you are staring beyond the veil at something that should not be, something ancient and filled with malice, the mother of demons, a creature that sees even Tanari as children. Your mind rebels and your vision fades. For a moment, you want to tear your own eyes out. She shifts the veils to cover herself, but it's too late. What is seen cannot be unseen. So that's a descriptive text, what you have to read to the players after they try talking to the pale lady, the pale knight. This is what happens. This supernatural ability blasts the mind of anyone who sees the truth. Any creature within 30 feet of her true form must make a DC 24 Fortitude save. I'm not sure. You guys can tell me if that's bad or not.
A DC what?
24 Fortitude save.
That's not that bad.
Yeah, if you're 10th level, you'll probably make that.
Yeah.
Okay. Success indicates that the creature's mind simply fails to process what it sees before the new shroud automatically wraps around her incorporeal body. So if you succeed, that's the best possible thing. Your mind just goes nope and fucks off for a little bit. Failure indicates for a brief moment the character views the truth and immediately takes 2d6 points of wisdom damage, 1 point of which is wisdom drain instead. Those who successfully save retain no memory of what they saw beyond the veil. This is a fear and death effect that does not affect chaotic evil outsiders. Pale Knight can only do this once per day, and then she teleports away in the floating round. This astonishes those around her. Despite Lolth's prohibition against teleportation in the Demon Web, Pale Knight is able to teleport normally. She rejects the pact since Lolth cannot be trusted to keep mortals away. So they're in the Demon Web at this point in time in the book, which you're not allowed to enter and leave without Lolth's permission. It's locks you down from being able to teleport in and out. And the Pale Lady just goes, nah.
Yep.
Just leaves. So, just that there's no stats for her, which I love. I love entities that don't have stat blocks.
Don't worry if they show up late. They do have 3/5 stats for her.
Yeah, I do have 3.5 stats for her, but even then, it's just like these are the stats she's going to use to amuse herself with you. You know, you can't really defeat her. She just, okay, I'm done now. Kind of stats.
So there's some interesting articles on Pale Knight is very, very cool, very interesting. But if you go on some of them, there's some interesting lore on Dagon, who was definitely, stolen wholesale from Lovecraft, and who stole it from,
ancient Sumeria.
Yeah, right. But it's used very much in the Lovecraftian way. He's the same sort of entity that Lovecraft portrays him as. The prince of the darkened depths, the originator of the deep ones, and this lurking evil of the deep. And he's the one that in his lore talks about how he lurks deeper in the abyss than any of the other Obyriths would dare to go. So much so that they forgot that he was there before all of them, because he alone resists the call of the Queen of Chaos when she calls them to battle the Wind Dukes for the round of 7 parts, and he just says, "No, I was here first, and I will be here last."
Yeah. So I mean, even in the Wikipedia, when you look at the page for the Obyriths, and they show off a couple of them, they have the Pale Knight, they have Pazuzu, they have Ugandek, and
Obox-Ob, who is the first,
and then Dagon. So, it definitely, I definitely like this, and I think especially when you have something that's been going on for such a long time, people can create, even if the publication is later, they can create a newer entity that's older than the oldest entities. Um, and I like that they don't explain much with the Pale Knight. But I was listening to this guy's video and kind of going through, and he was explaining to, I guess he was talking about the stat blocks that do exist about her, and they had a couple other things about how like she could just teleport people away into maze effect spells, that she could
That
walk
was
into
just
the ethereal
no, that wasn't.
walkout.
That was just a spell. Like she has access to the
Right.
imprisonment spell, which in that edition, one of the effects of imprisonment was you could lock them into an endless demi-plane maze. That was just part of
Okay.
the spell that anyone that could cast that spell could do.
So I started kind of thinking in my head, is like, this sounds an awful like, or this sounds very similar to the Lady of Pain. And, who again is an ancient being beyond all ancient beings, something that is, rarely fought. And even when brought to near death and destruction, can just like snap their fingers and say, I'm okay, actually,
She
you
doesn't
know?
have any stats.
Yeah, she still doesn't have any stats, but it made me wonder, like, is the Pale Lady possibly an Obyrith?
You
Uh,
mean, is the Lady of Pain?
Yeah. So, Lady of
It's
Pain.
one of the it's one of the possibilities. There's a lot of speculation. They do mention that it is possible that she is one of the very first demon lords that got tired of her duties as a demon lord and went and claimed the City of Doors, or created it maybe. But
so I have a thought on this.
Okay. Yeah, you did all the research and you dove deep into it today. You had 24 hours. What'd you find out?
Well, I mean, there's not anything to find out because they're
Right.
never going to say whether or not she is or isn't something.
Right.
But m- the one thing that is very, very consistent with all of the Oberith is they are chaotic evil, and not just chaotic evil, in the way that players might play a chaotic evil character. No, I mean they are literally just forces of evil. That is all they are. And the Lady of Pain is lawful neutral, just in general. Like she runs runs is a very loose term, but she has built a society, a place where people can go, and she doesn't generally fuck with anybody.
Hmm.
While she might have some, grand designs that nobody is aware of, she still has a structured plane that she's on, which is not how the Oberth operate. So my guess is she is not.
Okay.
She's very ancient. She's very old. She might come from the same primordial soup that they come from, but she doesn't share that trait with them. That's my thoughts on it.
so in all your research on Oberyn, what was your favorite things that you discovered about these primordial evils?
I mean, I don't really have a favorite thing. I enjoyed doing the research to find out who came up with this shit. Because as Chris mentioned, it's always fun to come up with something. Well, I have this thing that's older than the oldest thing, and then you have the next guy who comes up with something that's even older, and then that's how we end up with gods like Ao or Io or whatever the hell his name is. Uh, but everything really and truly started down this direction with Planescape in 1994, aka Zeb Cook and the team of people he was working with. From that point forward, people have adjusted it. Like I said, the Oberith first mentioning of that name was from Ed Stark. Many years later, I guess, 12 years later. Chris, you know that the Oberith were in fourth edition, but you don't know if they were called that.
The only evidence I have that they were in fourth edition is the Wikipedia saying that they were in fourth edition.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and I did not research any of the fourth edition stuff. But I don't know for sure. It also said that they were in second edition, but they weren't actually called that in second edition. So they might not
Yeah.
have by fourth edition either. I think the Obyrith thing, and let me kind of look at the exact term, the Obyrith, because it's under demons in chapter 2, the Fiendish Codex 1, Hordes of the Abyss. But they actually are breaking demons into subtypes. And there are 3 subtypes in third edition, mind you. There's the Lumara subtype, there's the Obyrith subtype, and then the Tanari subtype. And I didn't even read about the Lumara. Lumaras represent an emergent demonic subtype and are fairly recent additions to the Abyss, whereas the Obyrith are the eldest. They've been there forever. And then the Tanari are the ones that, that's all of your demon lords.
That's the ones everyone knows.
Yeah.
Or all D&D players know.
Yep. So, yeah, third edition loved to do that. They love to have subtypes. They love to break everything down, and so you can have variants of variants.
Yeah.
Like every one of them has different types of stats.
So it looks like in fourth edition they were in the Denomicon of Iglewith. Go, Tasha, go!
Yeah, I've yet to get a chance to read through that, but some of the little snippets I saw that were popping up out of there could be interesting as far as the lore of the Obyrith, because there was a lot of
I'll
misinformation.
just read what it says. It says the Obyrith, the oldest myths and legends tell of a race of vile entities that once presided over the remains of a dying universe. These beings of evil incarnate were known as the Obyriths, and they had ruled since time immemorial. As their hunger drained their realm of all life and power, they knew that their days were numbered. So it was in that last age of their race, the Obyriths breached the barrier between their realm and another, pushing a shard of uttermost evil through the fissure between realities. With the power of the shard, they hoped to corrupt the most powerful beings of this new realm. After bending and eventually enslaving these creatures to their will, the Obyriths would exert their control over the new realm, reshaping it into their own vile image. Eons passed as the Obyriths slowly died. When only a handful of their kind remained, the plan they had enacted so long ago finally came to fruition. A deity hungry for power found and seized the shard of evil. This god, Tharizdun, found his mind and spirit open to the Obyriths trapped in their dying darkness. The link to these foul beings corrupted him in an instant, driving the deity to madness. But the Obyriths' plan to seize the celestial realms controlled by Tharizdun and his kind were met with resistance and a twist they had not anticipated. The Obyriths demanded that the deity plant the seed of evil within the astral sea, promising him total dominion of that realm in exchange for his fealty. Even within his madness, however, Tharizdun recognized that his fellow gods would turn on him before he could fully seize the power the Obyriths promised. Instead, the mad god traveled to the farthest reaches of the cosmos, planting the seed of evil in the primordial expanse of the churning elemental chaos, the realm of fallen primordials, which he had hoped to seize on his own. Essentially, the next section is the birth of the abyss. So it says here, the planting the seed of evil in the element of chaos unleashed power like the realm had never seen before. The necessities of evil of the Obyrith's realm flared one last time as black flame exploded through the yawning vortex that formed where the seed was cast down. Forced to act even though their plans had gone astray, the Obyriths allowed themselves to be drawn in through the vortex as their own realm was consumed and finally destroyed. And that's the creation of the abyss, essentially.
That is fourth edition trying to kind of latch on to old first edition lore, because Tharizdun comes from Greyhawk and old stuff.
Yeah. And one of the things about fourth edition is I feel like they did a lot of really good writing and work kind of updating and bringing the lore up to date. Fifth edition didn't do shit.
No, none.
And I will agree with you on the fifth edition did nothing. I don't always really love the lore decisions, but especially with like Planescape and Dark Sun.
But the problem, what you have to do is you have to separate what is the Nintir Veil and what is actually like D&D core, Faerun core. You know, like the story with like a Sararak getting the eye and hand of Vecna, and tearing through the planescape to try to stay away from Vecna as Vecna's tearing through the planescape as well, looking for a Sararak so he can get his hand and eye back. Well, that shit's some pretty good story there, but it's hard to write good story that people are interested in when they refuse to play your system for dumb reasons.
Yep.
But Mike Merles, Brian R. James, and Teef Stownshed wrote the Demonomicon. So you got some pretty big names there, right in that lore.
Yeah. I don't really know about 4th edition lore a whole lot. I was just curious. I hadn't read that book. It doesn't sound like they were doing anything too crazy with what you read, at least.
Yeah.
No, that was actually a pretty smooth transition, because in the old editions, so Tharizdun, very similar. It was kind of the source of some of this evil as he sought power, and because he sought to war against the other gods, and he was trying to overcome them, and he was seeking a source of power. And he gazed into through something called the Living Gate, and something the worlds beyond, and got, they called it early editions, the Seed of Chaos. And so 4th edition just took that and was like, well, we'll call it the Shard of Pure Evil, and we'll say it's from the Obyriths, and we'll just kind of hook those things together to kind of hook in and add to it, or add a layer of lore. So it was a pretty smooth transition there, I think. Not bad.
Yeah. So a couple other little details about Pale Knight. So we mentioned that she's referred to as the mother of demons, and from everything I had read, that stems from the potential, and once again, could be wrong, misdirection, etc. But it stems from the idea that she has managed to stay on the same level of the abyss. She's on the 600th level of the abyss, despite the fact that oh god, not Grass, but one of the other major
Baphomet,
like Baphomet just hangs out there on the same level. They've never gone to war. They've never fought each other.
That was actually one of the best parts of his video, where he was explaining how they kind of coexist together. So finish your statement, and I'll add some other stuff.
Yeah, but there could potentially be a few reasons for that. And I read a lot of different possibilities. But one of the things that she probably did along the way was seek out some other power from some other realm, some other world, to give her offspring to help her defend herself. And that's sort of where the idea of the mother of demons come. Grass is very likely one of her children, one of her offspring.
And potential mate, it seems.
Well, it's demons, they do what they do. I don't think there's anything as far as Baphomet goes of being one of her kids, but just she's got some sort of a bargain in place with him where they don't fight with one another.
So let me read you Dungeon Dad's paragraph about her lair. So Pale Knight makes her lair in the Bone Citadel, a massive structure crafted from countless pristine hand and finger bones. The Citadel is hidden at the center of the 600th layer of the Abyss, inside of a massive maze occupied by the demon lord Baphomet. Pale Knight and Baphomet aren't exactly allies, but they do have a long-standing non-aggression pact that has yet to be broken by either of the two archdemons. Pale Knight rarely ventures out of the Bone Citadel, though she will emerge on occasion to defend against a threat made towards Baphomet's domain. She doesn't do this for any altruistic reason, but simply because she understands that if Baphomet's domain is overrun, it likely means problems for her to deal with in the future. Pale Knight's lair is decorated with sculptures made from the bones and creatures that she has trapped in stasis. The perimeter is patrolled by all manner of skeletal creatures. So I love the idea that she's just like, my homie's here, in the center of the god of Minatare's maze, which is probably an impossible maze to navigate. you know.
Unless you're a demon lord or something like that, almost certainly.
And he gets the added value of having this like nigh ancient, you know,
Somebody
unspeakable
really
horror.
scary there.
Yeah. And like,
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you,
enough that he's like, I ain't gonna kick her out. You kick her out.
yeah, you want to come take over my lair? Go tell her you want her castle. And they'll be like,
Yeah.
So I love that. I love that aspect of it. You know, just
So something else I had read, Lord knows where it was at, but there's only about a dozen Obyrith left in existence, and from my understanding, they all have some sort of a pact together. They formed a unit, a group, whatever it is, and while none of them hang out, they're not friends. They're still all sort of working in conjunction together to try to overthrow the Tanari, as it were, to bring themselves back as to the major demonic power. I wish I could
yeah,
remember where I had read that, but it was in one of
no,
these
there
mini
is
books.
sort of a some sort of loose conclave between them where they meet at the end of like, well, like the end of an age, however long that may be,
Yeah.
and you know, they loosely coordinate because they basically intend to do the same thing to, this D&D multiverse that they, did to theirs, where they're going to destroy everything and then sail off into the void and hope to find some other place, just because they can't help themselves, because that is their nature to deconstruct and to annihilate, which goes back to kind of the old like first edition, old editions before there was, the 9 alignments, when you just had lawful, neutral, chaotic. The, creatures of chaos were just always destruction and change, right? You couldn't, that was their nature. They were always going to push, and that comes from, the influence of things like Elric, things like that. Chaos is always pushing to change, and so whether it's good or not, it doesn't care. It cannot do anything other than change. And law is always pushing for perfect order and, stationary. And
Yep.
so these are the creatures of, they're also evil, but they are pure chaos. So they're always trying to they are the engines of destruction, always attempting to tear down everything around them.
Yeah, they can't help it. It's just their nature. Whereas, whereas mortals can change, these do not.
Yeah.
We've talked about it before, where orcs are no longer bad guys and everything. Where I tend to run campaigns where goblins are villains, orcs are villains, hobgoblins are still bad guys. I run it where they don't change,
yeah,
because they are exactly what you're talking about, kind of engines of chaos.
yeah.
And, these guys very much so are. Demons and devils are always just engines of chaos or evil.
And it's always been an interesting concept for me too. Is like, I love like old Warcraft where like the orcs were the bad guys, and I love now that as I've aged and the games have aged with me, it's like no, they did some bad deals and got tricked and swindled out of their planet, and they're not horribly evil, but they're actually honorable, kind of barbaric people, but they're still smart, and kind of growing up with that. But then like you always kind of want to go back to that, like, well, I need something to always be chaotic and evil at all times so that I can
You got to have
kill
bad guys.
without feeling bad about myself,
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some blog posts I read recently that talked about, like, okay, this says like orcs being evil don't extend from anything other than Tolkien. They're just copying Tolkien, right? And
Yeah.
the orcs were evil in Tolkien because in Tolkien they're not people. They don't have
Yeah, they're
families. They
Nazis.
don't like go back to like, they're literally just corrupted mortals. They are only things that hear the voice of Sauron and go and destroy. There is no society. They don't have they don't make families. They don't raise children. They just go and destroy. That's all that they are.
Yeah.
They're not people. They're not sentient beings. They have no real will of their own. They are just the creatures of destruction.
Yep, they're hatched out of the mud, and give it a sword and point it in a direction. And then you have the Urukai, which are the elven variants of them, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, but I like having very simple. These are bad guys. You can kill them without remorse. It's fine because
Uh,
this is a role. It's a game, you know.
Yeah. I like the idea of that goblins in a group are chaotic evil, but a goblin singular is it's just chaotic.
Yeah.
Chaotic stupid. You get them in a group, they're evil. They're going to do evil things. And then you get one separated, now he's your pet.
So Critical Role, they did, I guess they're on season 4 or something now, but they've done Amazon released the first season. God, I don't remember what they called it. Let me see.
Is this the Mighty Nine?
Mighty Nine. Thank you. That's the second one. And
this is the one I actually kind of wanted to watch.
I started watching it the other night, and it starts off with, and I do not know character names whatsoever, but it starts off with Sam's goblin, like the goblin that he played in that game. And it's even more hilarious when I'm watching the cartoon, it's still Sam doing the voice. So I'm seeing this tiny female goblin, but I'm just hearing Sam. It's very disconcerting.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, very disconcerting.
I don't know.
All right.
That was always a weird experience for me because I didn't come to D&D via Tolkien, I guess, like a lot of people. I read Tolkien later. I was always a science fiction guy because that's what my dad was into. So those are the books and stuff I read. And then I also read a lot of like fairy tales, like old folklore and fairy tales.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
to me, goblins are fairies, man. They're mischievous little pranksters and merchants that try to like swindle you for like weird things, like an emotion that you could never have again. Like they are mischievous little tricksters and fairies. They were never like evil things. They're just like all fairies. They're something you don't want to mess with because they're always full of chaos and they don't think like people.
Yeah.
What's odd for me is growing up as sheltered as I was. My introduction to fantasy was I read Lord of the Rings, but it didn't stick with me visually because I think I'm more of like the things I see stick in my mind more than the things that I read. So I grew up on Dragon Warrior, Final Fantasy, and other Nintendo games. So I had a lot of Japanese influence when it came to the things that I saw. So kobolds to me are always dogs because kobolds in Japan are still to this day dogs. And goblins to me are the mischievous little pranksters that blow up bombs on your B-2 bomber because I watched a lot of World War II style cartoons from Warner Brothers.
Those are gremlins.
I know, but they called them goblins.
Did they?
So goblins and gremlins to me were interchangeable. Okay.
Huh.
And then when Gremlings came out, all right, little green men that blow up bombs are goblins, and little furry men that get stuff in the blenders are gremlins. So I have this completely messed up idea of what things really are, and it extends to like magician tricks. Like, have you ever had anyone, or have you ever seen anyone do like the write down a fruit or a vegetable or a color, and then they have you start repeating the number 5 and like 55, 555. Are you guys familiar with that magic trick?
Vaguely, yes.
Okay. The idea behind it is if you get someone saying the integers of 5 enough, and then you have them reveal what their color vegetable or fruit is, it's going to be orange or a carrot because the normal brain associates the number 5 with the color orange on average. Okay. For me, it's purple because I watch a Chuck Jones cartoon where there's a giant purple 5. And it's just stuck with me forever. So whenever I did that trick and someone did it to me, I wrote down like, eggplant or purple, and I threw off the magic trick because I didn't write down the orange color.
Right, because you're not normal.
Yeah. So crazy times for me. But I like, getting back to more on topic. I like that there is still, that the demons are still kind of just chaotic evil entity. You have devils that are chaotic lawful entities, and there's a good
What?
devils are chaotic, not chaotic, sorry, lawful evil, sorry, and chaotic evil. Um, I like how they have that distinction in the game, so you can kind of play with it the right way. And I like that there are these massive entities. Like I could see anyone pulling Pale Knight out of the blue and just kind of using her for a little bit, you know. And because she's just so big and so powerful and so potent, she just, you know, gets a cult, and you're stopping a cult or something like that, or you're sending them against another demon lord because she doesn't like what they're doing, and she's the mom, so she's got to punish them somehow.
Yeah, and it did say that she will occasionally use mortals for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
So,
one of my I like that they mentioned that sometimes she'll just talk to mortals and like treat them completely normally and nicely and just be like, yeah, go off and do stuff for me, and like you'll be my friends for however long you live, which is nothing compared to me because I don't care.
Yeah, it's kind of scary when you think about that. You think about like Orcus, and you think about Baphomet, and you think about the other demon lords like Lolth, who have these mass cultures kind of like warped around them, like the Drow, or like all the cultists of undead that exist out there, to give these demon lords power. And then you have the Pale Knight, who really doesn't have a cult, really doesn't have followers, but is still so powerful and so mysterious. It's just like, yeah, I live in his realm because I ain't moving, and I like to talk to this little human guy for a little bit. I'm just going to give him stuff because, eh.
yeah,
One of
you
the things
can't begin to understand how she's thinking or what she wants.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like a couple of different things I've seen, things I've read, and a couple of videos, other lore stuff on her is that the people that do start cults of her are either they're they're wizards or arcanists who are looking for the secrets to binding and summoning demons, because she mother of demons, she has a great knowledge of demons, and so she has access to that knowledge that they want.
Yeah.
The other ones are the ones that are like, we want to see beyond the veil to see the truth of the other realms, and so they're these crazy people that they're making this weird pilgrimage where they're trying to get to her so they can see what's beyond the veil, because they're convinced it will relate some great truth of the multiverse to them, the hidden truth.
It's like the third edition alienist subclass or prestige class. If you're not familiar with that one, third edition, if you were a wizard or sorcerer or some shit like that, you could take the alienist prestige class, and it was basically you were an acolyte of Cthulhu. Like
Yeah.
you're looking beyond the veil into the eyes of things you should not be seeing, and it made your fucking character completely batshit crazy, but you got a lot of powers out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing,
It,
one thing I found interesting here while I was reading up on the fourth edition, Demononomicon, um, and the third edition Demononomicon, both are written by Igualiv,
Yeah,
Tasha.
yeah,
Okay.
Tasha.
Um, and all the information in that book is provided to Tasha via the Queen of Chaos. Okay. And that just made me think here for a second. It's like, that's kind of why they're not really talking much probably about the Pale Knight or anything, because the Queen of Chaos isn't going to have or give you any information about the Pale Knight. But all the other greater demon lords, aka lesser demon lords to the Queen of
Yeah.
Chaos and the Pale Knight, yeah, here's their stat block. They're nothing to us. Have fun with them.
Yep.
You
Yeah, you're not wrong.
know.
Stat wise, they're actually kind of on par. I actually do have the stats for the Queen of Chaos and the Mishka the Wolf Spider, and they're on par with all the other demon lords, but not really any more
yeah.
powerful.
Well, I mean, Pale Knight is a CR 26,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is well below some of the other ones. Like I'm looking at some here. The Dagon is CR 30.
I mean,
Orcus is
yeah.
CR 28.
Well, if it's got CR, then that's 3rd edition stats,
Yeah,
isn't
this
it?
is 3rd edition. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking at the Queen of Chaos from 2nd edition, and she's got 140 hit points, which for 2nd is a lot. Like it's 20 hit dice.
Yep.
But
That is a
still,
lot.
140 is still definitely doable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Dungeon Dad guy, part of his Monster of the Week videos is that he actually writes out their stat block and presents them to you. So like if you go to his video for the Pale Knight, you'll see a link in his description where you can link to where he basically has his lore drop information from his research, and then what the stats would be for an updated 5e stat block. And she's still a CR 26, but she's got 345 hit points and AC of 20. And really, there's you can defeat, quote unquote, the entity, but it just comes right back. It's like you can't really destroy or kill it. Her, from what I read earlier from the 3rd edition, that DC 24 Fortitude, he gave her a if she reveals herself behind the veil to somebody, it's all creatures in 30 feet have to succeed a DC 30 charisma saving throw.
I had heard about that.
Or die instantly.
Yeah. That's like just you're fucked. That you better roll an at 20 because
but like everything else, it's like ghost style attacks. That seems to be what she kind of almost is in a way. But the thing about her that was also very interesting, that even the Lady of Pain doesn't have, and the other demon lords don't have, is the Shroud. Okay, so you mentioned earlier, Christian, that so when the Pale Knight came into existence in this reality, a divine being was created just to cover her because she's too chaotic or too evil or too unknowing. And basically, this divine being has to surround her at all times. And there's no explanation as to like if this is actually it's like a separate divine being that was created for this, or it's like a divine magic by like AO or something like that. Like you don't know.
Yeah, there's no information on whether it is a being or is it a thing created by some being to contain her or whatnot. There is hints that it doesn't obey her and sometimes hinders her.
Yeah.
So like she's trying to do stuff kind of like I imagine when Doctor Strange will get annoyed by his cloak, wants to go do something else, and it like slaps him or pulls him somewhere. Like it does that to her. And she's like, ah.
Yep. Maybe she decided to just create the cloak to make her life more chaotic. It's like I'm the most chaotic motherfucker out here. I'm gonna make something that makes my life suck.
Yeah, all this is some of the stuff that I love about kind of the Planescape in general. One of the things I love is there's all kinds of interesting lore, and a lot of it sometimes contradicts itself. There's not a lot of places where they give you the definitive truth. They give you a lot of options for what the truth could be, and then you just leave them all out there as options, or you pick whatever one you feel is the most interesting and roll with it for that campaign or that game. And the other one is that you're in the multiverse with all these like monstrously powerful beings. Like you can't just hack and slash your way through the universe. Like you cannot win all the fights. Like so you have to think about going about your quests and your missions and your stuff in a different way. Like you can't just go to the abyss and beat the abyss, right? There's just it's infinite and there's infinite demons. Like it doesn't work that way. There's creatures that can crush you with a thought or drive you mad or whatever. So it creates a more of that that kind of older school of play style where combat was definitely not the option you were trying to go to every time. You were looking for how do I not have to fight all these terrible things that are going to leave me horribly scarred in mind and body.
Yep. Yeah, the abyss is not a fun place. Not a fun place at all. All right. We've been on this for literally almost an hour. Holy shit.
I just had another thought about that too. It's like one thing that I always loved about the Incredible Hulk was his ability to punch his way out of anything, And it was always kind of like explained almost like, oh, it's just, an overload of his gamma powers or something like that. Like Doctor Strange has so much magic available to him that's, plot device, plot armor kind of shit, where like he can send you to basically the maze. He can send you to a maze, much like the maze spell. And you're stuck in there until you get to the end of the maze or you're brought out of the maze. Well, he did that to the Hulk, and the Hulk literally just punched that reality to pieces and walked back home.
What the fuck?
Yeah, there's the unbreakable chains of Agamoth or whatever it was. Literal like bindings to hold down Celestials, and the Hulk was able to break out of those. But it was always like a scaling up kind of thing. You had to scale up to it, and almost like an inverse. How I love like the Pale Knight and all these unspeakable horrors that exist that you just can't understand and you can't beat. They've tried to do that with the Hulk recently. Basically saying that all gamma radiation and gamma power comes from the one below all, who is the opposite of the one above all. That throughout time and history, there's always been a green gamma door that would appear to basically create the avatar of the one below all. And Banner kind of accidentally created the green door and became the Hulk / the avatar of the one below all. And that's why he's like this weird, chaotic rage beast that's going around. And in the comics recently, like he would walk around and undead would rise around him because that's, part of the one below all's kit is necromancy. And you just can't understand that, and it can't fathom the amount of power that's behind that. And like, it kind of ruined the Hulk, I thought.
I remember you telling me this a while back, and my immediate thought was they should fire that writer immediately. And now you've told me it again a couple of years later, and my first thoughts are they should fire that writer immediately.
I mean,
Because
I guess it was a fairly popular comic, and it's an interesting space to write a story in, but it's like you kind of gave explanation to the Eldritch horror that it didn't need to have.
the thing
You
about
ruined
being
it.
the thing about being a superhero is superheroes do need to have limits. They
Yeah.
have to have weaknesses. If you are this version of the Hulk, which has no weakness, which can literally beat up every single superhero on planet Earth and every supervillain, what the fuck is the point of the comic at that point?
Well, you could do it right, like Superman. Superman is an unbeatable figure, but that's not his story. His story is about how do you exist? How can you exist being a god
But he has
with
multiple
more?
he does have multiple weaknesses too.
Yeah, but they always hand wave those away when they want to.
Sure,
But
I
he,
mean you're going to, but
Sure,
they
they do that
exist.
with any sort of thing,
yeah,
the Hulk
but
is
like
as strong as he needs to be to enable whatever bad stories they want to tell about him.
right, like so, like right now in the comic book, the literal comic book, I think they just finished the run of it, just to show you how much they've written themselves into a hole. The ongoing Hulk storyline was Godzilla versus the Hulk. That's the
Okay.
level that they had to basically create for a Hulk storyline. They had to go, okay, let's take the unbeatable, Terrask of the Earth, throw it at the Hulk, and see who wins.
They've
Yay.
done the thing is superheroes have fought Godzilla to standstills before.
Yes, but that's not what this was. Okay, this wasn't Godzilla versus Charles Barkley. Okay, best
I
comic
forgot
ever
about that.
written.
Yeah, I forgot that existed.
So this isn't Godzilla versus Charles Barkley. This is them honestly trying to go, okay, who is something or what is something that can fight the Hulk toe to toe? And their first thought is Godzilla. The fuck? No one's throwing a Terrask at the Pale Lady to try to solve a problem.
Yeah, it wouldn't work anyway.
Yeah. But it's more of the point of like what is interesting about that? Yeah, you've written yourself into a hole because now how do you make an interesting story? Because heroes are only interesting when they have something to overcome, when there's a challenge, when there is the possibility of failure, and especially in long ongoing stories where sometimes that they do fail.
Yep.
Yeah, like if I was to write a story about the Pale Knight, would be something happened in the celestial cosmos of the D&D setting that cause all divine beings to lose their power momentarily. Okay? And it's not, you're not sure what it is. I don't even know what it is. I'd have to write it up later. But in that moment where all divine beings lost their
It's the Avatar
ability,
trilogy part 2.
right?
Oh, gosh.
The Shroud of the Pale Lady dropped, and that amount of time without that shroud there permeated chaos and horror into the universe just because she was unchecked for that brief moment. And now the heroes have to kind of deal with the repercussions of that. Even though the shroud is back, the drop hit the water. It's echoing out throughout all the abyss and everything's going crazy. Like, that's a good story. But Godzilla fighting the Hulk isn't. You know?
Yeah, you could make Godzilla fighting the Hulk good, but if it's just because the Hulk is so powerful that he has to fight Godzilla,
They're my two favorite things in this world of fiction. You know, my daughter and wife are my favorite things.
Yeah,
but and you have me, a super fan, going, I kind of don't want to read that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, the writing must not have been very good. And, but let's kind of. I was gonna say we should probably move on to another topic, but we're literally at an hour already.
Yeah.
well, we got to move
Next
on
week.
to the oncology of the Pale Lady.
Yeah.
Is that what we've
So the
basically
oncology
done
of the Pale
last
Lady is
Obyrith?
I think we already kind of covered it, but go ahead.
Hey,
She-
lady.
she's an Obyrith. You can't draw her because she's unknowing. She's covered in a shroud. She looks hot under the shroud. And if you look at her, she'll kill you.
Oh, so
We're done.
we can kind of backtrack. I guess we'll do this entire episode of just about the Obyrth and the Pale Knight. But so I did give my thoughts on whether or not the Lady of Pain was an Obyrith.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, yeah. I guess we didn't. Well, my thought was it seemed too coincidental that their almost unknowable origin synced up so well, and their power sets kind of synced up so well. Like, they both seem to have, like, if you look behind her mask or look in her shadow or look behind her robes, you're dead, kind of thing. Different kinds of you're deads. One melts your brain, one disintegrates you from the universe. Both had the same kind of, like, going into the ethereal whenever they wanted to. Both had this kind of stature of reverence to them. And, being, beings of unknown ancient age just seemed to kind of be too on the nose. Almost like they kind of, like, wrote one and then were like, okay, we can write that better. And then they wrote it better.
Yeah,
And I think,
almost like they both spawned out of Planescape and Zeb Cook and his team.
Yeah. So it kind of feels like they wrote the Pale Knight and was like, that's close to what we want, but not exactly what we want. And then rewrote and kind of came up with the Lady of Pain.
But
And
Lady
that's
of
my
Pain
thought.
came first, actually.
Yeah, Lady of Pain was first.
Okay, well, the opposite then.
The Pale Knight was just a footnote in a book in the Planescape stuff. It was really 3.5 where they started to really do stuff with her, when they started to, like, it was when they started to run out of ideas and they had to go back and be like, what else can we get? What other big evil things can we get? We need a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, now it could be, because truthfully, it's like Christian said, she was just kind of a footnote when she first popped up in the Faces of Evil, the Fiends. And they didn't really start fleshing her out until third edition. So maybe the people in third edition were looking back at all of the second edition lore, because it is a different team and different people. But they might have just started looking back at second edition lore, and they may have kind of come to the same idea that you did, Chris, of, well, we could kind of make them very, very similar and throw that thought into people's mind of, are they, is the Lady of Pain an Obyrith or not?
Yeah.
Well, I know that when they were writing some of the third edition, like it was not Planescape, but when they were doing their fiends and demon stuff, they did go and look at the Planescape stuff for inspiration, and they talked to Monty Cook and Zeb Cook and Colin McCone, the people behind it, to get ideas of things they could do or places where they could expand the lore. And so I think they very likely took some inspiration, because they're like, well, the Lady of Pain is in one place and you can't really activate that place, and that place doesn't exist right now in current edition.
Yeah.
So what's some inspiration we can take from that? And oh, hey, well, this person is, vaguely similar in that it's a vaguely feminine figure that is deadly and ancient.
Yeah. And to me, it really doesn't matter if she is an Obyrith or not. Going off the fact, let's just say that she is. Like, I like your thought that they're all demons or all chaotic evil. But at the same time, it's like there's always that exception that slips through the cracks every once in a while. So she could be like the one Obyrith that was, not so chaotic evil.
She didn't turn out quite right.
Yeah, and kind of came through that way. And, if the Obyriths didn't exist when the Lady of Pain was written, they could easily, retcon that to be a thing. But they don't have to, because they can say her origins are just unknown to anybody,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
What are you saying?
I was going to say, I think that's better that way. I don't
Yeah.
think, you don't need every backstory and every mystery to be
Oh,
explained.
100%. Yeah.
I don't think that she is. I think it's better if she's not. I think it's better that there are different mysteries out there, and they're not all the same. All mysteries and ancient things all trace back to the same answer, the same evil mystery. And I think it's better that there are other things that are unexplained in this multiverse, and this is another case of those. If you go and look at some of the stuff about the hells, they tell you in some of the deep layers of the hells, the frozen layers of hells in Cania, that there are beings frozen in the ice that even the devils are careful that they don't want to melt the ice or get too close to. So there is something else that is ancient and evil frozen in hell that they're like, nah, we don't want to let that out. But they don't really explain what that is.
That was one of the things that they did talk about a lot with the Obyrith, is that they arrived at the Abyss long before any of the modern demons, and they were the only things that could survive in those layers of the Abyss. That's why they were so powerful, because they were so badass that all the other things there weren't able to run them out or kill them, which means that there were other badass, terrifying things there. So there's definitely a lot of stuff that is just left to the imagination about the realms of the Abyss and the hells, and you can kind of do what you want with it.
Yeah. And after reading the Mononomicon, I definitely don't think that the Lady of Pain is an Obyrith. I think that, they were very specific with their origins and wrote them very specifically. And I'm fine with her not being one and just being another ancient entity, because obviously there's other realms. She could come from another realm,
Yep.
And like Christian said, I think it's good that they don't explain it. And I'm glad she doesn't have a stat block still. I did see that she was almost killed a few times, which is weird, but
I'd be curious to see what books those were in. Deep dive for next week.
it was just something I think I found on the wiki or something like that. Where she was fought to standstill or close to defeat.
Vecna almost got rid of her at one point.
Vecna almost got rid of her. In ancient past, an entity challenged her for control of her sigil and nearly defeated her. Lady of Pain was not able to destroy him, but was able to entrap his spirit in a gem, which known to history as the Labyrinth Stone, which has been lost for over 10,000 years. So like she's not nigh invulnerable either, but again, you're talking about powerhouses above players. You
Yeah,
know.
it's something that the players could never mess with.
Yeah. So they're all in the same category. So that's the
Like
best part.
I have played in campaigns where we have fought gods. I've done it even in 5th edition because we did run a game up to 30th level where we didn't fight gods in that one, but we did defeat multiple of the demon lords. But they have stats. Anything that has stats is beatable. Whether or
Yeah.
not permanently killing them, probably not. But yeah, I'm kind of like Christian. I like not having stat blocks for these uber powerful guys because these are not supposed to be things that you're really supposed to be fighting. And if you
Yeah.
put stats in front of players, they're going to want to fight them at some point.
Yep. So it's kind of sad that she has that stat block from 5e or from 3e that has been updated because that's what happens. But
You mean the Pale Knight?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish it was more like the Lady of Pain where she just was kept, off the side. Um,
Well,
so
I agree. I don't think any of the major demon lords or the lords of the nine or any of those things should have stats.
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah.
if you want to have stats, you should make it clear that this is like an avatar or a projection or a facet of. This is a thing that this ancient being is sending out into the into the multiverse to do some task for it, and that thing you could maybe fight, but you can't
yeah.
fight it
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah. When I've run my homebrew campaign before, and I've made it very clear to the players, you can't fight the gods, because they're just not. Whereas Forgotten Realms, you have gods that are fightable. Dragonlance, you have gods that are fightable. My campaign
Yeah.
was they just aren't. They're beyond. They're beings that you cannot interact with. Uh, Demon lords, I didn't really have demon lords, but there was very, very powerful beings in my world that they could combat if they really wanted to. Fortunately, I never ran anything that they had to do that, but it was there if they wanted to ever go that route.
Yeah,
So,
there are in Planescape it talks about like the realms of the gods because that you're out on the planes where those realms exist, but it's very clear like in a god's own realm it is like even more so than it already is a power that can just squash you with a stray thought without even ever doing anything. You just suddenly cease to exist. In their own realms, they literally like write their powers to write the laws of the multiverse over again are so strong that they can defy the planes that they're in. Like there's gods where this plane requires you have to act this way or this layer is super cold and they're just like nah, not in my place.
third edition was actually really, really good about that. The Book of Planes in there was fantastic for understanding how planes operated, because you could morph planes. If you were one of these very powerful beings on your own domain, you could be in the middle of a fight and they just start warping the landscape around you. And third edition had all the sort of rules and everything for that.
Yeah. You were talking about, just having avatars or things come out and kill things. And I think that's how I would treat the Pale Knight stat block from 3E or even this 5E1. This is just a facade. This isn't the real entity at all. The other way I like to handle that is like the Jabberwock. So the Jabberwock, whenever you kill it, it becomes slain. And then 3D8 years later, another adult Jabberwock comes walking out of ruins within within 1,000 miles of where the last one perished. No immature Jabberwock has ever been sighted. The creature does not appear to age, so it's unknown if it has any real way of dying. So you can kill it, but it's just going to come back in a couple years, and that's what most demon lords do too.
All right, so to kill it, you have to take the slain Jabberwock's body, toss it into Mount Doom.
Like,
to
that's another thing too. Like even the One Ring could never be willfully destroyed, so it had to basically fall into Mount Doom by accident or happenstance in order to be destroyed. You know, that was the curse put upon it. And in the books, it was because fucking um,
Gollum.
Gollum was dancing around and slipped on a rock and hit his head and fell into the lava. And in the movies, it was kind of the same way, but he got pushed by Frodo. You know, I prefer the movie variant because slipping on a rock and falling in to destroy Sauron just seems really silly.
Yeah, no, I do like the where they were kind of fighting over it, and and you know, in his moment of like, I've got it, it was
Go back and
keep it.
Go back and watch the Return of the King Lord of the Rings cartoon, and just look at like Gollum just dancing around with the ring. I got it, and slip and fall into the lava.
You know, in my older age, I can see how that could happen. If you're of a certain age and you start dancing and moving around too much, you could fall.
Gollum was very old. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess let's go ahead and wrap this podcast up. We'll talk about everything else that we were going to talk about this week, next week when Dan's back.
Yeah. So I'm just going to reiterate: watch the Dungeon Dad's YouTube channel,
especially anything he has on psionics.
Anything he has on psionics. He has the Dog Boys. The Dog Boys is a great one. They're psionic creatures using the 5 E rules. So the psionics, the way it works is it syncs